All right, so we were supposed to have a guest tonight. I don't know where he is. He didn't message me, so I don't know where he is. But I watched this movie, and it's called The Mummy Murders. So if you haven't seen it, that's what I'm reviewing right now. So let's get into it. So this is the Scene Snobs reviews. So I watched The Mummy Murders, directed by Colin Bresler. It stars Jason Scarborough and Lila Anastasia Scott as Joe and Alexis. So the story is told basically the characters of Alexis and Joe. Joe is a serial killer. Alexis is a top journalist in the city where this takes place, and she is trying to put together these connections, this weird string of like murders that have been occurring. And Joe walks in and starts talking to her. They sit at the same table, they go through, and as he talks, he's telling the story about how he is the killer of these people, and he has all this information. And as it goes on, it becomes very off-putting in a lot of ways. Like it's one thing I will say about this movie is it's very stoic in its horror. I would not even classify this as a horror, but I do think if horror fans go into it knowing like this is more thriller-esque in the vein of like Interview with the Vampire, when people tell me that's horror, I'm like, yeah, I get it, they're vampires, but it's not really what we would deem horror. Like why do I get annoyed by that? I get annoyed by that in the sense of like, if I'm a horror fan, like I'm a film fan, so like this is a movie you should say, hey. But like if I'm going and I'm talking to some of my friends who host, horror podcasts, things like that, I might say to them, hey, listen, you should check out this movie. It's a horror movie, but it's just like a very stoic type of horror movie, more thriller-esque, and more in tune with the acting than it is with the actual, in most horror movies, some gore, some, action, things like that. So as I think about that, that's what I do when I send it. So when I get sent to me and they're like, oh, it's a horror movie, I'm like, this is not a horror movie. It is a horror movie. I almost call it like a stoic horror. And other examples of that, of course, are like Crimson Peak, or I said Interview with Vampire, stuff like that. Like horror movies where yes, there's horror elements to it. I would actually put this more on par with was it Little Things? The Little Things, the movie that came out with Denzel and Rami Malek and Jared Leto and such. I would put it on that level of the type of horror it is. It's very, and that's a good level to be on. I think this is a good movie. I enjoyed my watch of it. I really like the element, the back and forth, the chemistry between Joe and Alexis in the movie. The two actors do a really good job in that, playing off of each other, sort of this cat and mouse, but at the same time showing a level of respect for each other, but inquiring in great ways. The dialogue really flows well between them. And then the cuts between, as he's telling a story of the horrific murders he's putting in, how it's his art and things like that. I thought that was a cool element to it. And I'll tell you, the ending got me. I did not expect it to end the way it did. And that is something that gets major points for me. So if I can watch a movie and by the end, I'm not saying it was like a completely unforeseeable ending, but because of certain choices, certain elements, even though we've talked about this, the things, the ending and how it would kind of go down, it was very interesting. It was such an intriguing way to end it. I do have some things about it though. I will say this: it frames shot really well. Your shots are framed well. Lighting's very natural. Sometimes I saw some very harsh shadows that kind of took me out of it because I thought it meant it just like at certain times, some of those harsh shadows, I thought there was somebody else in the background, and I was like, oh, there's another layer to this scene. And then it turned out it wasn't. It was just more harsher shadows. But that doesn't take me out of it. The story kept me in. It's kept me very intrigued. The way Alexis and Joe in the diner leave things off is very well timed, very well paced. Seeing Alexis race back to do her thing, it's just really well done. The only thing I would say about the ending, and I don't want to give anything away, is like we see a character at the very end to kind of give closure to that character, and I feel like doing that took away from every other point we saw him in the movie, like how it left off, where everything sort of went and how it played out. Like I feel seeing that character took away from that fight from the last time we saw the character and knew it was going down. So yeah, overall, really, I would say go check this out. This is a very solid, indie movie for me. I give it a 2.5 out of 5. I think this is, if it's on, you want to check it out. You want to check out something new, support indie. this is a good one to go with. Remy's Demons was pretty good too, and it was cool to watch like 2 movies ago. He came out with that in 2020. It was cool to see that movie and how I haven't watched No Promised Land, I think it's called, his second movie, which looks interesting, or his movie after that, right before this one. To see the jump in the filmmaking, it was very cool. So Colin Bressler, yeah, that was, he did a good job with this movie. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for giving it to me to review and check out and such. And yeah, I'd love to talk about it a little bit more. But I also have a mixed movie pick from 1971 tonight. So we're going to finish out the show with that. And my mixed movie pick is Godzilla versus Hedorah. That's right. I've been watching a lot of Godzilla lately. As you know, we have our miniseries going on. It's a 16-parter. We're watching all 40 films, 2 TV shows, and we're just going to go through the whole thing and talk about it. And each week we get together and we talk about a few of the movies. This past week, on this last episode, we talked about Godzilla versus Hedorah. This one I think gets a bad rap, and I wanted to throw it on here because it's worth checking out. The animations in it are really clever. The story can be watched by kids and they can get it. But there's also elements for adults where it's kind of like it's funky, it's weird, and I think horror fans will really enjoy it. This is also commonly known in the dubbed version in America as Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. It gets a bad rap, but I really do think this is one is worth checking out again, especially considering all of the creature designs that Godzilla has to fight. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining in tonight, being a part of it, hanging out with me.